Welcome to the University of Denver. This is a Project X-ITE event, and so if you're not here for that, you're in the wrong place, but I can tell by the chit-chatter that we have a bunch of entrepreneurs and innovators in this room, so welcome to the University of Denver tonight. I'm Eric Matisik. I'm the Executive Director of Project X-ITE, and first I'd love to thank our founding partners in this initiative. For those of you who haven't been with us before, Project X-ITE was launched out of the business school, the engineering school, and the law school as a cross-discipline initiative to really drive innovation, entrepreneurship, and technology across campus. And I know that with us tonight we have Dean Holston and Dean CRUCES from the business school. And is Dean Smith here from the law school as well? But huge round of applause for their leadership, for bringing together what we believe is a new model in higher ed. As we look out across the opportunities in the future, it's really these types of programs that on the edges of the disciplines, we know that innovation will exist. So thank you so much. Project X-ITE, just to give you a quick understanding of what we're doing, we really want to provide meaningful opportunities for our students and faculty at the intersection of those disciplines. And we want to bring the community on campus to co-create, co-innovate, and really inspire our students and our faculty to be building the best innovative activities, not only companies and corporations, but nonprofit organizations, political organizations, those who are willing to create. We want to bring a community as close to the campus as possible. So raise of hands, maybe you were at Denver Startup Week last week. So that's a great example of us working hard to bring something that's on campus to allow our students to really engage deeply in that resource. And most importantly, we want to make sure that we meet companies where they're innovating. And these are programs that you'll see us work alongside pitch competitions, ideation sessions, things where companies who are already doing innovative activities, giving students and faculty the experience to co-create and do that alongside of that. This is an initiative led by our trustees, and we have Chairman Scrivener here tonight, the chairman of the board. Really excited about his leadership and vision for this project as well. So why are we doing it and how are we doing it? There's three core things you'll see with Project X-ITE as we continue to develop across campus. First, our experiments. These are cross-discipline projects where we're putting students in high-growth companies, really getting first-hand experience of being entrepreneurs at hand. So if you're interested, please see Stephen Miller, Liz Iraqi. Stand up real quick, staff, just so everyone knows who Project X-ITE team is. Liz Iraqi, development, Betsy Hart with marketing, Nina Sharma, the Super Sharma, magic at the door. See any of us, and Stephen Miller's, along with Will Hurd, have been really leading our experiments project. So if you're interested in those types of activities or want to get involved in some of these really cool company opportunities, please see them. Startup resources is really critical if you're starting a company on campus. Things like tonight are critical to that. How do we match the resources both on campus and off campus for you to be successful in building whatever you endeavor? So these are things like competitions, these are access to capital, resources across campus and across the community. How do we make you successful and build fast? And last, our meeting of the minds really expands the dialogue. And so we have two core activities you'll see in there. Our convenings, which are large-scale events. We have about, we've done some of those in the areas of cybersecurity. We have an upcoming conference on November 11th on social entrepreneurship. And these are 200-plus person day-long events where we could do deep dives in a dialogue that engages the entire campus and community. Our Project X-ITE speaker series is an example of what's happening tonight. We want to bring the best and brightest ideas and dialogue right here on campus for you to engage deeply in innovation and entrepreneurship. So on behalf of our entire team, thank you for being here, and Stephen Miller, thank you so much for getting us prepared for a special night. So without further ado, we have precious time and we have an amazing panel. So I'm going to invite the panelists up. Will Ford, first, is our president and co-founder of LaunchBoom. LaunchBoom, Will, make yourself up on stage. It's the most effective product launch system and full-service marketing agency that manages the entire crowdfunding process from start to finish. He partners with companies looking to launch new innovative products on Indiegogo and Kickstarter, and always delivers successful campaign. You can always visit his website, LaunchBoom, and you can see exactly what they're doing. Welcome, Will Ford. Sue Heilbronner is the CEO and co-founder of MergeLane, and additionally, she's a speaker, advisor, investor, podcast host, mentor, professor, former civil rights attorney, creative visionary, operator, and catalyst, and pretty much with that bio can do anything in the entire planet. Sue has been a CEO, a president, a chief marketing officer for digital marketing and e-commerce companies, and she began her career as attorney as a federal prosecutor in the U.S. Department of Justice. She transitioned to business by founding an online baby gift company in 1999, and she later joined Discovery Communications, the parent company of Discovery Channel, with 15 other international networks. And I mentioned she is a co-founder of MergeLane. Welcome, Sue. Kirk Holland is the managing director. Seriously, Kirk is the managing director of Access Venture Partners. And for those who don't know Access, they've been here investing in Colorado companies for a long, long time. They're the first money in many of the great deals that have come out of our ecosystem. And he's led investments such as NextGen, Craftsy, RoundPeg, Tap Influence, TaskEasy, all while being at Access Venture Partners. He also brings a broad history of operating experience, and he worked at companies such as Procter & Gamble and Jupiter Media. So welcome, our VC. And next up is Ryan Kirkpatrick, a partner in the Colorado Impact Fund. Ryan has a decade of experience in growth investing in oriented companies with private and public markets. Prior to Colorado Impact Fund, he was a principal at Ferrier, Freeman and Company, leading healthcare private equity firm focused on growth capital, investing in the lower middle market. And Ryan began his career as a healthcare analyst at Melios Capital Management, and he covered the pharmaceutical, biotech, and medical device industries. Welcome, Ryan Kirkpatrick. And now let me pass it over to our esteemed moderator, our very, very own Michael Myers, a teaching assistant in Professor's Daniel College of Business, a founder of CRUCES, a consulting firm that enables businesses to utilize social media and mobile marketing as business drivers online. And he is our DU resident expert on all things social media and innovation entrepreneur on campus. Welcome, 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 Michael.
Okay. We've got a great panel here tonight. We're excited that you all came. Thank you very much, and excited to have the panel that we assembled. And I'd like to get things started off by asking a very basic question. So what's happening in Colorado in regards to investment? What are the trends that you're seeing and in the funding community? How's that?
Denver's on fire. You know, I've actually only been back in this community for a couple years, so I don't have a lot of the historical context that maybe Kirk or some of these others do in terms of venture investing. But I can tell you the activity level around entrepreneurship and the startup community is incredible. I think one of the things I notice is all the infrastructure and support system that has really developed over the last few years. Things like Project X-ITE, things like the Ben Network, things like Startup Denver, things like Prime Health that supports digital health. There are all these really an incredible support system to really promote entrepreneurship and to help entrepreneurs get their companies to the next level. And it's that kind of, I think, infrastructure building and investment that Denver is doing that really is going to lead to some really great results over the next 5 to 10 years. That stuff takes time to develop, but that's one of the things that I've really been kind of blown away by just being back in this community for a bit.
Yeah, I would agree. You know, people use the term hot, which I don't like. But I mean, the one thing I would say, Ryan hit a lot of the good stuff. Things like MergeLane, Techstars. There's a lot of great things going on here. And I came out from Silicon Valley 15 years ago. To be honest with you, for the first 5 years, I was yawning a little bit and go, geez, you know, what are we going to do here? And then like the last 5 years, it's really taken off. But one of the things that I've really enjoyed seeing is this market's still grounded. You know, people still are working hard. They're loyal to their companies. We don't have a lot of the cockiness that you see in other markets. And so I like the fact that the people here are staying grounded as we become more and more successful personally.
Awesome.
One thing I would just add are these working at all for you guys? Can you hear us in the back? Yeah, not so. You can? So I think that the biggest thing here that's happening here that really sets us apart from other communities, because if you actually interview anyone from any city in America and you say, how is your city, town, how's your startup community? They'll all say, it's awesome, because it's better than it was 8 years ago during the financial crash. And so from a relative perspective, it is awesome. This place is really awesome, and one of the things that really stands out, especially for you all as students, is that when you sign up to be here and be part of this community, one, you get unrivaled access to extraordinary people, different than any other community, but two, as you grow in your own career, just remember you're signing up for that and giving that back also.
Yeah, well said. On my side, with Startup Week last week, we're seeing a lot of innovation here in Denver. A lot of startups are coming out of nowhere, which is exciting for me being in crowdfunding.
Sure. So what kinds of things are you seeing getting funding now? Specific models? Is there trends that you're seeing?
Yeah, I think certainly the cybersecurity software market is starting to, I think, solidify itself as really one of Denver's, I think most interesting industries. A lot of that is just the investment that Governor Hickenlooper has made. People like JB here at DU, and then there's been some great outcomes. Some really high-profile companies who have gotten some late-stage funding and have really scaled. And this is a great ecosystem for, I think, for the cybersecurity community with all the, all the defense work that goes on in Colorado Springs, and there's just a lot of reasons why we can be a real standout in that area. That's one that's of note to me.
Awesome.
Yeah, I would agree. Cybersecurity, I think another area that's gotten some momentum lately is in the consumer internet. We're seeing companies like Havenly, one of our companies, CRUCES. So I think there's some fundamental bigger companies that are spinning off people, things like Home Advisor, Liberty Media. So starting with those companies that are spinning out the next generation. But when people ask me that question, I always like to point out when I answer the question is that one of the great things about this market is that it's very broad. So if you look at our portfolio, we've invested in about 70 companies over the last 17 years here, and very broad. Everything from Rally software, that's kind of boring software for software developers, all the way to videos for knitting, and CRUCES to logarithm and security. So nice broad, not only economy in general in Colorado, I know this is about tech mostly, but broad economy in Colorado, and then within tech, very broad in the subsectors of tech, which as a regional investor, I really personally like.
Awesome.
You didn't invest in peanut butter?
Damn, I would have if we, but I almost added peanut butter into the LP documents.
The themes, yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple other industries too. I'd just note. I mean, the peanut butter is a good example, but the natural foods market up in Boulder is incredible. Some of the best innovation happening in that sector is happening in Boulder, and we've had some really standout both exits and growth capital deals that have happened out there. And then one that's we've played into is this concept of workforce development. Galvanize was one of our first investments. They just got a big growth capital round. Obviously, they're doing full stack software development, helping people, really transition to jobs with a lot more upward mobility that are really in high demand for this economy. And then another one that comes to mind is Guild Education, which just got a big Silicon Valley venture round. They're focused on those entry-level workers who are trying to move up the ladder to be managers, and really serving as a support system as they try to really utilize a lot of those education dollars that a lot of companies like Chipotle are offering as a benefit to their employees. And that's an area that I can see continuing to really grow here in Colorado as well.
Fantastic.
I just want to say something just so it actually gets said, which is we spend a lot of time, we're investors, so we're talking about investment, and that's cool. But the thing that frequently doesn't get discussed, and if I were you, I'd want to really know this more, is that building a phenomenal business is more important than raising money. And it turns out that it makes it look as if these startups are so sexy. It's like, what is more GQ than being in a startup right now? And a lot of that is about the smoke around fundraising. And I don't think any of you guys would disagree. Just two things just to say. One, it takes way longer than you think it will. CRUCES had a phenomenal growth. When did the company start?
About 6 years ago.
6 years ago. I mean, just an extraordinary growth. That's a long time. And, they may or may not exit in the next few years, who knows? But that might be a 7 to 10 year timeline. And two, when the money drives up in the economy, what saves you? A great business. So just remember that.
Excellent point. So, Will?
Well said.
Awesome. This will help kind of illuminate everybody as to exactly what you do. So let's start with Will. Where do you participate within the funding ecosystem?
Yeah, so on my side, I've built a business that helps entrepreneurs, business owners launch new innovative products. And what I've done is I've built a system where we control the outcome. And what that means is that we properly prepare the deal so that we actually have a real community that's highly engaged, so that when we turn on the crowdfunding program on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, we're able to hit the entire campaign goal in the first 24 hours. And then because it does so well, we're able to basically climb the ranking system faster than everyone else, which then allows us to raise hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars for these exciting new startups. So I'm in super early, which is a lot of fun.
Awesome. Sounds exciting. Sue.
Sure. I'm an angel investor, and I'm also part of the MergeLane fund. So I'll talk mostly about MergeLane. MergeLane makes investments in companies that have at least one female in leadership. As a general rule, those are really early stage companies. Sometimes they're in our accelerator, which usually means they've raised less than $1 million by the time they get there. And sometimes we make investments outside our specific annual accelerator program in other companies that are awesome, that have one female in leadership, that have already been through another accelerator.
I'm also an angel investor and a fund investor. On the angel side, I invest in, my old life was at Procter & Gamble, so I like to do consumer products and peanut butter and stuff, although I was dumb and didn't invest in peanut butter before in Boulder. Our fund invests fairly broadly between 0 in revenue and roughly 10 million in revenue. Our sweet spot is probably between, call it 1 and 5 million in revenue, but pretty broad range.
The Impact Fund, the Colorado Impact Fund is, we're impact investors. And to us that means creating an investment vehicle for our investors where we deliver market rates of return, but also some positive community impact. And the way we define impact is, does the product or service help improve community health? Does it help improve education? Does it help to conserve natural resources? Or does it help to facilitate economic development? In terms of stage, we're in kind of the 0 to 20 category. We're willing to do kind of more growth equity style deals, a little later stage deals, maybe than a traditional venture fund. It's a pretty broad mandate, and we invest between $3 to $5 million per deal. So that's where we focus.
Awesome. So I need to stop the boat at this point and ask somebody to tell the peanut butter story, because at this point it's driving me crazy, and I kind of want some jelly and some toast.
Justin's Nut Butter?
Heard of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
If
So
you were
how
to
much-
invest in that company, I don't know did anybody invest? I don't know what the return was, but I think it was pretty darn good.
Was it? Nice.
Yep.
That's awesome. There we go.
They sort if this makes you think I'm going to go out and form a natural foods business today, please come talk to me first. And another long play story with great tenacity of a great leader, Justin Gould. That company sold to Hormel for, I think, $230 million earlier this year.
And do you know when he raised money? He didn't raise money at the beginning. Did he bootstrap it?
I think he did, but he did raise, there are some.
Later he raised money.
And
but
the funny thing is, there are maybe some institutional, like regular investors in his realm, but there are also people for whom that was the only investment they ever made. So they're batting 1,000, and they have no idea.
Stop angel investing
That's
right there.
right.
You're done. You're 1 for 1. Retire.
So Sue, I'm curious, what's the warning that you'd like to give everybody about natural foods companies?
Yeah. So every now and then an investor will come to me, a guy, I had a call today. This happens, 3 times a week. And he said he's worked in apparel for big athletic companies and athletic retailers. And he said, I just got really frustrated. I couldn't find clothes that fit me. So I want to create a new men's apparel brand. And right, that's that. So there's a giant red light that goes off like over my door when someone says something like that, because yes, it's possible. Yes, we all were around when Under Armour started, and it looked insane to try to beat out other established players in that market. So yes, peanut butter happens. But creating a business where you're manufacturing one unknown brand of clothing in Asia, where it takes you about 6 to 8 months to get a new SKU launched, and then if you do sell it into retail, they give you terms of 90 to 120 days. So I'll just ask that entrepreneur, I'll say, that's really fantastic. And tell me about other areas in your life where you choose the hardest path. Always my question. And they always say, I always choose the hardest path. I'm like, cool, you're doing exactly the right thing. Keep going.
Yikes. Okay, so Kirk, I'm curious. So every entrepreneur is obviously fascinated with what's going on inside someone on the opposite side of the table, the VC's mind, try to figure out what it is, what points they need to hit that get you kind of enticed to go ahead and invest in that business. What without confessing too much, what are those points in general?
I'll confess it all.
All right, on.
It might take, how long is this panel? I think Sue and I were talking about it last week on a panel we did together. First and foremost, not for all VCs, maybe older people like me, but the first thing is like, do I want to work with this person or not? It is a long journey. Rally, I was an investor for 9 years. Logarithm has been 8 years. CRAFC 5 years. These are long journeys together. And this is kind of creepy coming from an old guy, but I use the dating analogy. It's like you're going to be dating and then you're going to get married. So you want to know this person, you want to get to know them, is this someone that I want to work with? Is
Sure.
like a number or 1, 2, and 3.
So how do you vet? I mean, is it
I
take them out and get them drunk and ask them lots of questions, or?
Now, I may not reveal that tactic. I would not confirm nor deny. But I'm joking, but I like to get to know people's spouses, their families. I like to see how they treat wait staff and busboys and how they interact with other people because, again, you're going to in the boat with them for 10 plus years in a lot of cases. So getting to know them as people and what drives them, what their values are, and that takes time. You can't do that in a checklist 30-day due diligence period.
True.
That's over time. And then a lot of it is kind of seeing, do they do what they say they were going to do? At least in the startup world, or will they do half of what they said they were going to do? So,
That's right.
what else do I think about on the people side? For me personally, I talked earlier about it. I think we've stayed fairly humble as a market, most of us, not all of us, but most of us. And I like people that have humility, they're driven, and want to accomplish things for the sake of accomplishing things versus to make themselves look better, so looking for the humility side. Yeah. And then you kind of get to all the other stuff that I talk less about because it's a little bit boring for me. It's market size, market opportunity, the disruption that they're really going to make happen in order to create the kind of equity value that we need to create. And I think following up on Sue's point, I always pound this on the home panel, sorry to talk so long here, but we are not the right investor for like 999 out of 1,000 companies out there. And so where I see bad things happen, both with me historically as a venture capitalist and with entrepreneurs, is when I'm investing in something and we're expecting kind of 100% year-over annual returns in a deal, which equates to, call it, top line growth. So we're expecting 100% year-over-year growth every year. And really, because of the team, the execution, the market, or whatever, it's really more of a 10 to 20% grower. Mm-hmm. Well, don't take our kind of money. Bootstrap it, customer fund it, angel fund it, parents, second mortgages. Do like Matt at Upslope. Do the third mortgage and have your wife beat you in the head. So I was rambling, sorry.
No, that's good. That's wife beating husband. That's all I got. Anybody else have any criteria they look for?
What do you look for in products? I mean, in a way, may I ask a question?
Sue,
yes, you may.
That would be fantastic.
Keep going.
Great. So you're kind of at the cusp of a new space, really. It's not totally new, but what you're doing, and I'm going to use this term in the most positive way possible. Like when we do SEO or really good at AdWords, we're kind of gaming the system within legal realm, right? Yes. So you're just really good at this. But I imagine you have to pick products or companies that can see that kind of lift. How do you do that?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
It's real similar to the way you guys are looking at it.
I was totally going to ask that.
So you guys, for me, this is my fourth company. I am a serial entrepreneur. And again, you learn from experience, and that's the truth. And so at this point, I've got a real good sense for who the winners are and who the losers are. So at this point, I am literally leading our industry. Everyone and their little brothers want to crowdfund. And so I've got so much deal flow coming across my desk. I've got relationships with Kickstarter and Indiegogo as well, where they're sending me deals daily. I mean, it's a lot of deal flow. So I look at deals all day long. And for me, I've got 3 qualifiers. To your point, the people. Are they smart? Are they going to be able to take the deal and make it successful post Kickstarter, post Indiegogo? That's huge. Secondly, is the product a good product? Is it truly innovative? Otherwise, I don't want to touch it. And then the third for me is it has to be properly funded. And what I mean by that is, for me, I want more $1 million deals, just like everyone does. And I want to get away from the small raises, right? Because of all the resources and time and energy that my team has to put into these deals because, to your point, for me, it's a shorter relationship. It's more of a 6-month dating relationship, but it's still a partnership to me. Because if I'm going to back you and I'm going to go in there and I'm going to do all the preparation, create all your marketing assets, build your community, and then raise all the money you need, I need to believe in you, the product, and I need to have some sort of gas to dump on the fire. So for me, I need to have some Facebook advertising dollars because that's where we do it.
Awesome. Have you seen, great question, Sue. Have you seen any business models recently, or products, I should say, that you think are complete winners, home runs, et cetera, and love to talk about them?
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing some truly exciting innovation in technology, in robotics. There's a deal coming out of Hong Kong here next year that's going to be massive. A company called Hanson Robotics.
Okay.
They've built a life-size robot that they can program. The intelligence lives in the cloud. And the product they're launching is a children's toy. It's going to be able to interact with kids. You open up the package, it's going to say, hey, what's your name? How old are you? What's your favorite color? After that, it's going to start teaching you mathematics, science lessons, and it stores and retains that information in the cloud. It's kind of freaky when you think about it.
Can it discipline the kids? I'm in.
That's right. Program abusive sayings if they get the answers wrong.
No boyfriends.
I like
I have
it.
2 daughters.
Sounds
so-
awesome.
But to your point, I mean, for the first time in my professional career, I'm having an absolute blast.
Awesome.
I'm literally traveling around the world. I'm meeting with entrepreneurs, business owners that have truly innovative, incredible products. And I've already set up my deal flow for this year, and all I'm doing now is I'm setting up 2017 so we can just continue to, stay on top.
Awesome.
Yep.
Cool. Okay, ready. So Ryan, people sometimes look at the impact of investing as being more philanthropic, right, in nature, but in reality, companies are seeking funding need to pass to an even higher threshold. One of the fundability and of social. Whoa. I'm going to try over. Ready?
Rewind.
People sometimes look at impact investing as being more philanthropic in nature, but in reality, companies seeking funding need to pass an even higher threshold, one of fundability and of social benefit. That was much better that time. Why is what you're doing at the Impact Fund so unique?
Well, the first thing I would say is this impact investing approach is pretty new and still evolving. It's a pretty small asset class today, but growing super fast. And it really started out as a means for philanthropic dollars to get recycled. So the idea being that instead of donating this dollar to this foundation and really getting a zero, negative 100% return on that capital, I could give it to another entity and potentially get some of that money back, and also generate that impact that I want. There's a lot of organizations who are sort of tackling that sphere of the return profile. So there's people that are sort of saying, hey, I'm going to invest in some affordable housing and I'm going to underwrite to a 0% return. I'm going to give you your money back. And then they can use that capital to do something else. There's people like us who are really more focused on market rates of return. So we're going to underwrite like any other venture capital or growth equity firm would. We just have to make sure that the product or service is directed at an area that's impactful and important to our investors. And that's kind of what's unique about our approach. We believe that the most sustainable approach to impact investing are going to be the groups that can deliver on that return promise, because that's going to attract the most capital. That won't just attract philanthropic dollars, but that'll attract really more traditional funders of firms like ours. And then we also have a fundamental belief that these impact and generating good returns for your investors should work together. Really more modern approaches to workforce, better wages, more diverse management teams, which are things that we're really supportive of. We think that is going to lift returns. We think if you're solving really big social problems and you're doing it effectively, then that's going to lead to really great returns. So we think those two can work hand in hand, and that's what we're out to prove. There's not a lot of firms that have really proven it. There's a few out there that are paid the way for groups like ours. SJF Ventures is one based in Durham. They've raised several funds with a strategy like this. Double Bottom Line Ventures in San Francisco has had a strategy like this and have been successful. And we're trying to do it here in Colorado. That's the other thing that's different about what we do. We're regionally focused, which sort of limits our opportunity set, but on the other hand has allowed us to build, I think, great partnerships with very passionate LPs who love the state, want to see us be successful, willing to put their shoulder behind, our strategy. And so I think it's this market rate return, regionally focused strategy that I think makes us different than some of the other impact funds out there.
So go ahead.
No, I was just say, it's kind of cool. I hadn't thought of this before listening to you talk, but I think this is the case with you too, Sue. One of the cool things I think about our 3 investment funds and what we do, I know you take companies from out of Colorado, but I think a lot of your LPs are Colorado residents. And these guys really, I think, forged a great path. To be honest with you, when I first came out here, there were some of the local pension funds and such that invest in funds that invested here. And then after the telecom bust, not surprisingly, many of them went away. And like, okay, well now we're just going to allocate all our money to Boston, New York, and San Francisco, and that pissed people like us off.
Sure.
And these guys did an awesome job going out, and I think Hickenlooper helped them a little bit, but went out and kind of said, hey, why don't all you institutions and all you family offices out here, why are you sending all your investment dollars away from Colorado?
Yep.
This is a phenomenal place to make great returns, but also contribute to your community and help grow the ecosystem and economic development here. That battle is still going on. We're still all pushing the envelope on that, and
Sure.
we'll continue to, but these guys help blaze the trail and making the progress on that front a lot in the last few years, which
Thanks
is great.
for the plug.
Yeah.
Have you seen any investments recently that you're excited about?
Oh yeah, I mean, just to give you some perspective, I mean, I think we looked at, in 2015, I think we looked at about 200 deals just here in Colorado, which I think kind of blows people away. And for most venture firms, I don't know how many deals you guys look at a year, probably more than that is my guess. So pretty highly selective. But we're looking at some things today that are software platforms on the Western Slope, which is pretty cool. We'd love to put some capital to work in places that aren't Denver and Boulder, which is where all the capital gets invested here. There's a couple natural foods deals that we're looking at. And then some education technology platforms as well.
Awesome. Cool. So Sue, you said you were gonna deflect this question. So
I'm really excited about this question now. Just ask it.
does this sound like a trap to you?
No,
This
I'm
is a
so
total
It's a
ready.
softball. It's a softball.
I got it.
It's a
I got it.
softball?
I'm ready.
Okay. So the funding environment in general, I'm curious if you feel as though you're treated differently being a woman in the industry as opposed to the rest of the panel. How was that?
You're not wearing a blue sport coat.
Look at that, huh?
Somehow
why I
I
took
managed
mine
to
off.
stand out. So, okay. How many people in this room think that women face discrimination in seeking investment from people or entities? Just raise your hand if you think that's possible. Oh my gosh, that is hilarious. Thank you all for being awesome and honest. Okay. So somebody said this before, I hold the fundamental belief that that is not true. And first of all, I'm a wild optimist. Second of all, I've had a phenomenal life where everything I've ever wanted has come true at a high multiple. So I have a weird view of this maybe, but also I just think life sucks complaining a lot. So maybe I just deny all that, I'm not sure. But here's what I think. I think there are fewer women who are creating investable businesses. And because I know Kirk, as just an example, and I know the folks at Techstars, and I know what we do to try to get companies that are led by women that are investable. And that we've talked about what those criteria are. The nut of those criteria, I think, other than awesome people and all that other stuff, is that the business has to be able to scale. Because in order for it to provide investment rates of return, it has to be able to grow maybe 100% a year, sometimes 40% a year might be fine, but it has to be able to grow geometrically, okay, not arithmetically. And what I tend to see with women, and I'm going to generalize, so you guys can beat me up about this later, but there's really no way to talk about this issue without generalizing, except I'm talking about me, and that's silly. So what I tend to see is that women tend to create businesses that they want to grow more like, I'll call it the hardware store. So they want to grow a business that's a workable business that has a nice gross margin, that exhibits really nice profits. And you know what? That's fantastic.
That's great.
That's just awesome, right? Because most of us lose most of our investments completely, right? They all poof, they go away. As soon as I write an angel investment check, it's like poof, I imagine it just going into dust. Okay, that's just how you have to do it. It's how you have to think about it. No matter how hard you work at diligence at that stage. So one of the reasons MergeLane exists is that we try to spot female entrepreneurs who have an idea that could scale. Maybe they've picked an idea that could scale, but they have a mindset that doesn't scale. Because that's when I can get involved and say, hey, yeah, I know, that's awesome. You want to build your business 5% year over year? I mean, that's super. You're going to do this for the next 25 years? I mean, that's fantastic. But if you want to play the game of investment, it has to look differently, and your vision has to be 50 times as big in terms of what's possible for you and for your company. And so I think we, as women in this room, are responsible for some of this gap. And you don't have to do it this way. You could do it a different way, but you're in this room, so I might as well tell you. Think a little bit bigger, just for the hell of it. And if things are different and they don't go the way you know, we'll all be okay. But I think that's the biggest thing I see.
There you go.
There's some great examples of some up-and-coming, you know, women CEOs in the state. I mean, Promise Phelan from Tap Influence, she's a total rock star. We backed a woman named Brooke Eddy at Bhakti Chai, who's built an incredible brand. That woman at Revelar, I'm trying to blank on her name. She's
Jackie.
great. Yeah, Jackie, she's fantastic. There's some really great examples of women who are getting exactly what Sue's talking about and kicking major butt.
But like what we want is I want you guys, those of you who are in school here, because I probably won't live long enough. I want you guys to come to a panel in 15 years. It's like, man, everybody's wearing a dress and that guy is wearing a blazer. That's ridiculous.
That would be
you know,
awesome.
I want it to look different. I want the choices. I don't want to be able to name all the awesome female CEOs, because right now we almost could. And so that's your job, and I'm excited for you to do that.
So when you look for the idea that could scale, but maybe the person, do you want to bring them into MergeLane and change the business or change them into being a CEO that scales? Or would you bring someone in that's like, I'm fine growing it at 10 to 20%. That's how most great businesses get built.
No, we won't bring in that
You won't bring
second
that?
person.
Okay.
And we won't bring in a non-coachable person. So what we'll bring in is somebody who largely doesn't think big enough because of fear. Because that, especially if the person's coachable, is actually, I mean, we're all scared. I mean, we're all sitting here like, who's going to talk to me at the bar tonight? Like, everybody's running with fear as a dominant thing. It's not just the women in the room. So it just depends what we're afraid of. So yeah, if somebody's coachable and I think they're just in their own way, you know, I'm not quite I'm pretty good at that. So I'll bring those people in if they have an idea that could scale.
It's interesting. You brought up the term coachable, and I'd like to hear from all of you. We'll start with Will. What does coachable mean for you, right? So in other words, you get entrepreneurs that are like, this is my baby. Then you get others that are like, so help me become a better me, right? Build my business. What are elements of being coachable?
I mean, for me at least, it's really starts with trust. And you have to be able to, at least for me, I have to get to a point where they truly trust me and they know that I'm on their team.
Yep.
And I'm going to do everything possible to help them win. And if I can establish that rapport early on, we can do some big things together.
Awesome.
That's what it means to me.
Yeah. Sue, what does it mean for you?
I'll pass.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like the word coachable when it comes to what we do, because that signals like I'm really the smart VC and I know everything, and I'm the coach, you know. And my old high school coach used to, I don't know why I'm so physical tonight. He used to hit me in the face. So.
Are you coachable, Kirk?
I'm probably not. That's why I'm an investor. But it says it's almost like a one-to-one relationship. Like, I'm your boss, and I'm smarter than you, and I'm going to coach you how to be a great founder, CEO, entrepreneur, which is bullshit. It's like, so what I look for, I talk more about listen and learn. People that are willing to listen and learn. I think one of the great things about the MergeLane and Techstars and the acceleration model is you get to listen and learn from a lot of people. But at the end of the day, great entrepreneurs, they listen, they learn, then they make their own damn decisions and they go make it happen. They don't get coached by someone to tell them what to do and then go do that. So that's how I think about it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with Kirk on his point around the coaching piece. I mean, really, I've never been an operator. There are plenty of VCs that have been. So I don't pretend to know anything about how to run the business. And so for me, I just try to be a facilitator, a door opener, somebody that's really going to try to help that entrepreneur accomplish the goals that we've collectively set out to achieve. And so to me, the key is that collaboration and partnership. Is this a person that is going to work, together with us to go try to achieve those goals? I think that's, for us, that forming that partnership early on is really, really important. And not everybody really wants to do that and isn't really capable of that. So that's the point I think.
Awesome. So curious, other than getting institutional investment, what are some other ways? I mean, what are some advice that you give to somebody that should be bootstrapping, right? Should be starting from the ground up. Let's start on this end.
Yeah, look, I mean, one great idea that Kirk mentioned before is trying to get your customers to finance, some of the early development of your product or service. That's a great way to get the business up and running and to really learn more about your product. I mean, the best person to learn about your product from is the customer. So that's a really, really great way, I think, to figure out your product market fit and also just finance the business pretty cheaply, honestly. Maybe the cheapest way to finance your business. And then there are some of the more traditional routes, like there's a fair amount of seed capital that's out here in this marketplace. I think it's generally can be pretty challenging to access because it's a very fragmented market. You got to do a lot of knocking on doors, and there's not a lot of formal ways to access that capital beyond just traditional networking. And then you've got some great models. These guys can speak to some of the other models that work well.
Yeah, I mean, my rule of thumb is don't take the money if it's going to be too expensive. To your point, with LaunchBoom, I personally funded this entire business, and I did it using your strategy. I did it by generating value, selling the relationship to those qualified entrepreneurs, and within 8 months we were profitable, which was huge. I'm usually happy if I can hit profitability after 18, 24 months. At least that's my previous deals. So for me, I've been offered a lot of from a lot of investors that I've worked with in the past. A lot of people want to write checks. Like, hey, well, let me get in on this, and I don't know where to put the money. So I say no. Well, thank you.
Yep.
If you can do a top-tier accelerator and you have a company, go do one. If you can get into a company that's already in a top-tier accelerator and you can get part of that, go do it. I think that right now we have a glut of accelerators, and they're not all good. So pay attention to the mentor network, pay attention to the MDs, pay attention to the people who are investors who are connected. But right now, like, that deal is not going to exist in 10 years. It's going to have gone away in the current form. So boy, it's a buyer's market for accelerators. I would totally get into one and just be super discerning about the quality of the program.
Can you recommend some accelerators?
I recommend MergeLane.
I think Techstars, I think Techstars is a world-class program. Everything we do at MergeLane is
Y
built.
Combinator is good too.
I have a different view of that, but it's great that you recommend Y Combinator.
All right, now we got a good topic.
Yeah, I mean, I
Are we
think,
being recorded?
I think Y Combinator is a much more hands-off program. It's much more casual. It's much more loose. The classes are very large, which is great. It's a great brand, so that's helpful. But I actually think the model of mentor-driven learning that you talked about, Kirk, at Techstars, and the 13-week engagement, and by the way, a lifetime of relationships with the alumni and the mentors, And MergeLane's very similar. I just don't even think you can put a value on that.
Awesome. Alex, other ways of raising funds?
Nothing to add.
No? Okay. There you go. Actually, I had a great question.
What's
I
wrong?
promise.
You
I had a
forgot
great
it,
question.
didn't you?
I totally forgot my question.
Shouldn't have had that beer.
That's right. Should have had that beer. Exactly. It's going to come back to me. It's going to come back to me too late. So any questions that I didn't ask that maybe I should have asked? How's that?
I have a question for you, Ryan.
Yeah.
How are people, this impact thing, it's so confusing, you know, and so has the tide turned where people who have a profit incentive are willing to embrace impact, or is that still a transition that's happening?
I'd say it's still a transition that's happening. Look, I mean, in many ways, we have a lot of internal debates about impact amongst our team, as you might imagine, because impact can be a pretty personal thing. And so what we've really been working hard to do is to put some real metrics around it. There's some people that have been paving the way on the impact metric side. SJF, who I mentioned before, they created these gears ratings, which actually the B Corp status has embraced. And those are really around things like diversity in the workplace, the kinds of benefits that employers give their employees, how many jobs you're creating. It's really more around those kind of jobs and workforce metrics. What we found is we've been creating impact metrics that are specific to the business model, because every entrepreneur who is an impact entrepreneur, they have this idea of what they want to accomplish with their product or service, and that's a pretty personal thing, and it's very important to the culture of the business. And so we create metrics that are specific to that business that we measure, like we do the financials of the business. One of our companies, School Runner, is a really good example. A very key and simple metric there is how many students are now under the platform. The second one is at the schools that use our software, what kind of improvement have they seen in terms of test scores? For other companies, it's a little harder to figure out those metrics. But at the end of the day, our investors are going to ask us to deliver to them those impact metrics and those measurements. And we're going to have to figure out really good ways to show our investors. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
I remember my question. So if you are helping businesses crowdfund, and there's two primary platforms, right? Kickstarter and Indiegogo. There's a host of others, but those are the two primary ones that we discuss openly with students. What are the benefits of one over the other in regards to raising funds?
Yeah, so the way I look at it is Kickstarter did a really good job building out their community first, and they have a very engaged audience. They're also about 10 times larger than Indiegogo. They have close to 200 million monthly unique visitors on their platform, compared to Indiegogo that may have 20 million, and that's pushing it.
Sure.
So for me, I always launch on Kickstarter first, and then I've got a great relationship with Indiegogo. I actually love Indiegogo. They've got a great client support team. And then what I do with them is I launch on their platform immediately after the Kickstarter ends. So I tap both audiences.
Yep.
You can't go the other way around though. Kickstarter is extremely strict, and they don't like Indiegogo very much.
I bet. Well, it's interesting too. So from what I understand, Kickstarter is much more rigorous as far as criteria to get on the platform, right? Versus Indiegogo, which isn't anything goes, but it seems like there's less hurdles with Indiegogo.
You're exactly right.
So one
Yes.
topic, or maybe it's to talk about, because Sue mentioned either go to Accelerator or go join a company to Accelerator, and I usually get my hand slapped for saying this at a startup panel, but as I look across the crowd, it's probably 50 to 75 students. My typical advice would be, don't go join a startup or go to an Accelerator. Go work for a company where you can actually get mentoring on how to build a business. Again, I'm probably biased. I started at Procter & Gamble in 1990, but I learned a shitload on what it takes to build a big leadership company, and I learned a lot of that, and I applied that as I went earlier and earlier stage in life. So, the numbers, startups are hot and entrepreneurship's hot right now, but there's probably really only 10 to 20% of you that really fit there. So go look the other direction, take it seriously before you go jumping into the fire would be my advice.
That's right. So why don't we go ahead and open it up for Q&A?
It is hard to give you kind of real hard data on the metrics because I do think it's really industry specific. I can just give you some examples across some industries to give you maybe some perspective. But like in natural foods, for example, and Sue gave that great example of all the kind of early stage startups in natural foods. So in natural foods for us, we like to see at least $5 or $6 million of revenue and really broad distribution across a bunch of different retailers because you see a lot of startups that maybe can get their product into Whole Foods and then they can't really scale after that. So for us, the revenue threshold is a lot higher, because we need to make sure that it's a durable brand and that it's got a pretty wide audience. On some of these software plays, again, that kind of can depend a bit. Like digital health is a good example. Digital health is a place where a lot of companies can get to kind of $4 or $5 million of revenue because they'll get some early adopters. A big health system will adopt the product, maybe one payer to try it out, and that could be a really big customer. It could be a $2 or $3 million customer, but that's another industry where I like to see kind of broader distribution, multiple customers. So I really know that this solution has kind of broad appeal. And you can go down a bunch of other industries. For ed tech, it's about, have they gotten into districts? A lot of products built in the charter space, but 90% of the market is district market. So I like to see that they've broken through and figured that out. But again, it's all about product market fit and having a sense that the company can really scale broadly.
I mean, hard to be specific, not knowing the specific company, but the two big metrics that I spent a lot of time understanding, I think are very important to create big equity returns. First one is around usage, however you look at usage. So, if the Snapchat, my kids' usage is once per second or once per 15 seconds, whatever, higher usage per time creates amazing companies and equity value. So, and you gotta kind of comb through the BS of, well, I got 100 million downloads. Okay, well, they downloaded it. Do they actually? How often are they using it? So usage is a big area. And then the other one is, and it comes more down to efficiency, is the viral metrics that you look at. It's like for every customer I get 3 referrals. Those kind of things, because those can drive again the efficiencies as you scale the business, and then therefore lead to high equity returns. So those are 2 metrics I spend a lot of time on.
One other thing I would say on the people side is I really look for entrepreneurs who, even in the early days, can attract really excellent talent. Because that to me is a really good indicator of, number one, the scalability of the company, because there's a lot of really good people that are going to make things happen. And it also just gives you a sense of the quality of the entrepreneur. If they're really able to bring high quality individuals to sit next to them, that's a really great indicator. Even at those early stages, that's a green light.
I want to just answer your question, bridging the concepts of lean startup and because I know you guys are all conversant with that. At the very, very early stage, the kinds of things that Ryan's talking about, they're not there yet. So, and even usage is sort of nascent. So you're actually looking for entrepreneurs who are creating experiments, and the experiment itself is creating a thunderclap. Even if it isn't driving to revenue, even if it's just like, oh, these guys understand how to talk to their customers. This does have a viral coefficient. So has everyone heard of Shinesty? You guys know that company, Shinesty.com? Just go, don't go now, put your phone away. Yeah. But after this, go check out Shinesty. So I met Shinesty at a CU event. It was an idea. Their idea was to sell outrageous themed clothing for college parties, okay? And these guys were wearing obnoxious, crazy fleeces. It was ridiculous. And they had one guy had a mullet. I mean, it was absurd, right? And I said, you guys, this is a dumb idea. And so they came back a week later, and they had put up a website, and they had gone to the Salvation Army and bought a few outrageous things. They bought 14 things, and they sold out their inventory in 2 hours from a standing stop, like from nothing. So we followed the experiments, and the experiments grew from there, but it was very clear that they knew their brand, they knew their audience, they knew how to communicate, and now, you know, they've grown, I don't know, 1,000% year over year for the last 2 years or more. So yeah, they're still doing it.
Great example.
What's the biggest idea like that you've passed up? You don't mind telling?
Peanut butter?
No, unfortunately, it's been bigger than that for me. I've passed on a lot of things that I shouldn't have. Probably for me, Omniture. I could have invested in the original round in 1998 with Josh, the CEO. And the reason I didn't invest, because I thought he was an asshole. But he made $5 million. He sold for $5 billion. So
I saw the first deck for Groupon in the mid-2000s, and it was this idea of selling discount stuff at colleges, and I thought that was really stupid. And so I wasn't one of the first investors in Groupon.
thanks for bringing up those painful memories.
I don't think I've been doing this for long enough to know yet. I'm sure there will be some big ones because this is it's a tough business to get it right, you know, every time. So we'll see.
I mean, I see companies earlier than actually, maybe not you, but than these guys, extremely involved. But I don't know that everyone, that may not be for everyone. I mean, I really like curating people, and so you meet somebody and you're like, wow, this other person's the compliment, and they just called me and they're looking, and whether that's, it's usually not motivated by self-serving stuff, it's usually motivated by the good of the entrepreneur, but extremely involved, and I guess we all get involved in making important introductions to key stakeholders for those companies. I sure do.
Yeah, we definitely. It's funny. I look at it in two phases. The first one I call is kind of the good karma / due diligence phase. I said earlier I like to get to know people over time. I want, from good karma, I want to help everybody in this room. Anyone I can help, I love to help. And introducing people to each other, quality people, is help. So I like to do that. But then I like to watch and see what happens. And per Ryan's point earlier, to the extent you introduce, you know, the retired CIO of level 3 to some new IT infrastructure entrepreneur that's 25 years old, and all of a sudden that CIO, oh, this is pretty interesting. I'm going to put a little money in. I'm going to join the board. So I'm using that as diligence. So that's the first half, and then after we invest in companies, certainly. I think it's one of the things that helps us in our business. We've been doing it for 17 years here now. So now if we need a bunch of SaaS software people, I go after Computer Associates buys Rally and nobody likes working there anymore. I go grab a bunch of my old Rally people and move them over to another software company, and that ecosystem kind of goes on and on. So,
and all that work is self-serving too, you know, in many ways. I mean, because what all of us want is actionable opportunities, right? And if we can help a small company get to that next level, that creates an opportunity for us. So there's all kinds of reasons why, you know, beyond the good karma, it makes a lot of sense for, I think, all the financial community to get involved with the early stage ecosystem here, because it's just going to make everybody better, and that's, I think what we're all shooting for.
Yeah, agreed. Who's next? Patrick.
Specifically, so ask for like the materials for the product. So, for example, the robot product you're talking about, or where it comes from, how important is the simplified line, and what it comes for the employment and how that works. Because you know, when it comes to startup costs, of course, we want to be as efficient as possible with your costs. But how important is that? You know, the next effect in 10 years from your time coming to your decision.
Yeah, so for me, I see all sorts of products. I'm working in all sorts of different verticals. And for me, I've spent the last year and a half building preferred manufacturing partnerships, because so many of my early entrepreneurs, they have great ideas, but they don't know even how to make the product. And at the end of the day, what it comes down to is, can we, you know, create a price point and have a cost so that you have a sexy margin on the deal, so you can actually make money at the end of the campaign. And so for me, it just depends on the vertical I'm playing in. And at this point, I've got some strong manufacturing partners that I can introduce my clients to and help them get competitive quotes.
I think it comes down to whether the product has intellectual property or not. Okay, so if your product has intellectual property and that's your defense against competitors, then it doesn't really matter, I think, where the product, where you source the pieces for the widget. You know, I think if you're a brand where there's not a lot of, there's not a lot of barriers to entry, I think that idea of sourcing from, sustainable sourcing and where, making your products in the U.S. and all those things, they become part of your brand story that probably can differentiate you in the market. So that's kind of how I think about it. But that can be an incredible and powerful thing, especially today, more so than ever before. People really want to know where the stuff that they're buying is coming from. So hopefully that helps.
It's a good question.
Who's next?
You guys, let me jump in here because I deal with a lot of entrepreneurs, and most of them fail because they don't stay focused. So for me, when I work with any early entrepreneur, when I say early, it's their first time doing a deal, we look at the model, and I basically tell them to put blinders on and just stay laser focused on that. And if an idea or opportunity arises, that's great, but if it doesn't help you move forward against that model, you got to stay away from it. Again, focus is key to the early entrepreneur, at least their success. That's been my experience.
Are you talking specifically about a venture-backed deal that doesn't go well? And
Yeah, I'm not really asking about how to be successful. I'm asking
How to fail.
when you see them fail. There are
I've been doing this longer, so I've had a lot more failure, Ryan. I really hate failure. It's funny, I tell my entrepreneurs that are kind of as they're failing, a story for me personally. My first job out of school, I was running a manufacturing plant, or part of a manufacturing plant in Sacramento, California for Procter & Gamble, and I'll never forget the day when the blue suit flew in from Cincinnati on the private jet and landed in Sacramento and came in and announced to 450 employees we're shutting down, and it was a long-lasting impact on me and how I do the business. And I just try to be human and empathize with them. The thing that kind of keeps me good in those situations is I think people overestimate, it's kind of contradictory what I said earlier, but I think people overestimate risk. So people say, oh, I'm going to leave level 3 and go be VP marketing of, tap influence, and it pays half as much and it fails. What happens? Like, dude, you're a great marketing person at level 3, you'll go get another job at some other big company. So I try to put that perspective in their head, both before they try to take the risk and then later fail, and then kind of come back to those conversations. And then I try my damnedest to find them the next thing. I got one portfolio company now going through this now. For 3 weeks, I probably spent 15 hours calling other CEOs, sending emails. Hey, this VP sales is awesome. You need to meet with this person. So a lot of it's just personal dedication to people.
a lot of it depends on why you think it fails, right? I mean, a lot of these deals that do really well, a lot of it's a lot of luck. Beyond the talent of the management team and the product they have, you need a little bit of luck too. I can tell you that in my previous life, some of our best CEOs were people who had failed before for whatever set of reasons, and they got it right the second time. In fact, a red flag for us oftentimes was CEOs who had a big success, and you had to be careful when you backed them the second time because they may be less motivated. Maybe you kind of you gave them a little bit too much credit for what they did that first time. So I guess at the end of the run, I think you sit down and say, is this person a really talented manager? Did they fail for reasons that were maybe separate from them? And I think those are the people that you want to try to get behind and help and maybe back again or with a different idea. Or it just kind of depends on your assessment of what happened.
If you do fail, I have a great story, a portfolio company. I don't think he'd mind me sharing this, but Brent Handler, who's the CEO of Inspirato, his first go around, we backed him in a company called IQ, I always want to say IQ Destination, I think it was called. And we lost all our money in it, and all the investors lost money. And what I don't like to see is a lot of times when that happens, then you never hear from the entrepreneur or the people. He literally took the 4 main investors out to dinner at Capitol Grill and apologized to them and said, I'm deeply sorry, I did everything I tried, I just couldn't make it work, but someday I'm going to make it up to you. And then we invested in Inspirato, so someday he's going to make it up to us. Right?
Nice. Anyone else?
One left, it better be good.
Oh, that's tough.
Wow, we got
That's
one.
right.
We have one woman.
Talked about some of the successes or the kind of startup OGs like Craftsy and Logarithm. What are some of the ones that you're most excited about going forward and that we'll be talking about on this stage here in a year or two, whether you invested in them or maybe just saw them last week at Startup Week?
Shinesty. SHINESTY.com. Those guys get it. If you're not getting their emails, if you have any interest at all in email marketing, Kirk,
Oh
are you
yeah,
getting their emails?
their emails
They're
are
the,
awesome.
They're the best
Awesome.
emails. They're the best emails for marketing that I have ever seen. And just there's so much to learn from this company. It's unbelievable. So much to learn from the culture of this company, and I have the privilege of being one of their investors and board members. So if you ever want to learn more about them, like bring Shinesty here. It's a phenomenal story.
They'll be on MTV soon.
They
too,
will
right?
this spring.
For me, we're always excited about our most recent investment, Red Canary. We just invested in. We kind of believe they'll be the next Logarithm of Colorado in the internet security space.
Mine's my most recent too, Galvanize. What's really starting to happen there is they're forming really interesting corporate partnerships and really helping to redirect large portions of the workforce to be engineers. I mean, there's incredible demand now for engineering talent that we can't really meet today. And what those guys are doing is literally taking people who are not developers at places like Allstate, and after a 24-week program, turning them into developers. And that is absolutely incredibly valuable for these corporates who don't want to lay people off, don't want that expense, don't want the expense of trying to find developers. And so they just kind of want to be that flywheel for corporate training for engineering, which I think is a really big idea.
Robotics.
I mean, yeah, for me, guys, I've got a lot of NDAs in place, but if you go to LaunchBoom.com, we always showcase our next month launches, so you guys can always see what we're doing. But a lot of really exciting things going on.
Awesome. Cool. I think we're good. Thank you very much.